The last person you'd expect to forge a DNR is a trauma surgeon, especially one who took an oath to save lives. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Felicity, and I watched my sister Grace deliver our father's eulogy with the kind of polished grief that only a sociopath could muster. She stood at the podium in an impeccable black dress, dabbing at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. "Dad always said that true leadership means making the hard choices," she told the packed church. "As a surgeon, I understand that better than most." I gripped the wooden pew until my knuckles turned white. Next to me, our younger brother Christian squeezed my hand, probably thinking I was overcome with emotion. He wasn't entirely wrong. "Felicity," my mother Meredith hissed from my other side. "Stop fidgeting. You're drawing attention." I was drawing attention because I hadn't cried yet. Everyone expected the youngest daughter to break down, especially given my fragile emotional state, a narrative Grace had carefully cultivated over the past year. After the service, mourners clustered around Grace like moths to a flame. "Such composure," they murmured, "just like her father." I retreated to Dad's study, needing to escape the suffocating sympathy. The room still smelled like his cologne and coffee. His laptop sat closed on the massive mahogany desk, the same desk where he'd taught me to code when I was 12. "There you are." Knox, our family lawyer, appeared in the doorway. "The will reading is about to start." "I'll be right there." "Felicity?" He hesitated. "You should prepare yourself. There have been some amendments." The conference room felt too small for the tension it contained. Grace sat at the head of the table, a position that should have been Dad's. Christian slumped in his chair, while Mother perched rigidly beside Grace, both of them avoiding my eyes. Knox cleared his throat. "Before we begin, Dr. Grace has submitted some documentation for consideration." Grace slid a folder across the table. "I wish it hadn't come to this," she said softly. "But Dad knew Felicity wasn't ready for the responsibility." My hand shook as I opened the folder. Inside were psychiatric evaluations I'd never participated in, diagnoses I'd never received, and a legal recommendation for limited financial autonomy due to emotional instability. "This is impossible," I said. "I've never seen these doctors." "You were in crisis," Grace explained, her voice dripping with concern. "After your breakdown last Christmas." "What breakdown?" "When you accused the board of conspiring against Dad?" Christian chimed in. "You were paranoid, Fel. We all saw it." "I wasn't paranoid. Dad said someone was leaking trade secrets to—" "See?" Grace gestured to Knox. "She's still fixated on conspiracy theories." Mother dabbed at her eyes. "Darling, we're trying to protect you." Knox looked uncomfortable but continued reading. The terms were brutal. Grace would assume CEO position at Low-Tech. I would receive a generous stipend, but no voting rights, no board seat, no access to the projects Dad and I had developed together. "This isn't what Dad wanted," I protested. "He was grooming me to take over the AI division." "Felicity," Grace interrupted, "you're having an episode. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." I stood up so fast my chair toppled backward. "You're stealing my inheritance." "Security," Grace called calmly. Two men appeared instantly. "Please escort my sister out. She needs time to process." As they led me away, I caught Knox's eye. He looked away quickly, but not before I saw the guilt there. Hours later, I sat in Dad's study again, this time with a tumbler of his favorite whiskey. The laptop screen blurred as I tried to access his files. Everything was locked down tight. Grace's first act as CEO had been to revoke my credentials. I yanked open desk drawers randomly, not sure what I was looking for. In the bottom drawer, underneath a stack of old photographs, something caught my eye. A small flash drive, labeled with my childhood nickname, Little Lion. My hands trembled as I plugged it in. A single text file opened. "My fierce girl, if you're reading this, I was right about the leak. But I was wrong about who to trust. Start with the backup servers from 2019. Look for Project Cerebra's original documentation. Grace doesn't know about the ghost drive. I'm sorry I didn't protect you better. Dad. I stared at the screen, my grief crystallizing into something harder, colder. Grace might be the esteemed surgeon, the perfect daughter, the new CEO. But Dad had left me a weapon more powerful than any corporate title: the truth. And I was going to wield it like a scalpel. Your father was a paranoid genius, Shiloh said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. These encryption protocols are insane. We sat in her cramped apartment, surrounded by monitors displaying cascading lines of code. 3 empty energy drink cans testified to our all-night effort to crack Dad's files. Can you break it? I asked. Already did. She grinned, pushing her purple hair out of her eyes. But you're not going to like what I found. The screen filled with emails, hundreds of them, dating back 18 months. My eyes caught on one sender, Roberto Rogers, CEO of Prisma Dynamics, our biggest competitor. Holy shit, I whispered, scanning the contents. Grace has been feeding him information about Project Cerebra for over a year. That's not all. Shiloh pulled up another window. Look at the timing of these transfers. Every time sensitive data left low-tech servers, a substantial deposit hit an offshore account. My phone buzzed. A text from Christian. Where are you? Grace called an emergency board meeting. Ignore him, I told Shiloh. Keep digging. She cracked her knuckles. Your sister's good at covering her tracks, but she's not as tech-savvy as she thinks. Want to know something interesting? Someone accessed these servers 2 days before your dad died. My stomach lurched. Grace? No, Aston Shelton. The former PR director? I frowned. Grace fired him 6 months ago. Maybe he knows something. His termination paperwork looks rushed. I was already grabbing my coat. Can you keep working on the ghost drive? Obviously, but fell? Shiloh's expression turned serious. Be careful. This is bigger than corporate espionage. Finding Aston wasn't hard. He worked at a boutique PR firm downtown, though worked might be generous. When I walked into his office, he was nursing what looked like a hangover. Felicity Lowe, he said, straightening his rumpled tie. I wondered when you'd show up. You accessed my father's private servers right before he died. He laughed bitterly. Straight to the point, just like him. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a flask. Want some? You'll need it. I need answers. What you need is to run far away from this mess. He took a long drink. Your sister is dangerous. She's a surgeon. She's a shark in a white coat. Ask her about the clinical trials. What clinical trials? He shook his head. I've said too much already. Last time I crossed Grace, I lost my career. Next time? He drew a finger across his throat. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was an email from Knox. Need to speak with you. Urgent. Meet me at Carlo's Cafe in 30 minutes. Tell me about the trials, I pressed. Can't, but... Aston scribbled something on a post-it. Check these dates in the hospital records. And Felicity? Trust no one. Especially not your family. Knox was already waiting when I arrived at the cafe, nervously shredding a napkin. I shouldn't be here, he said as I sat down. Grace would what? He lowered his voice. Your father came to me 3 weeks before he died. He wanted to change his will. Everything was supposed to go to you. What stopped him? He died before we could finalize it. But... Knox glanced around before sliding a USB drive across the table. I kept copies of the drafts, and something else. Security footage from his office the day My phone lit up with a text from Shiloh. Get back here now. Found an email from Grace to Roberto, dated the morning Dad died. Knox, I said carefully. What exactly was on the security footage? He stood abruptly. I have to go. Don't tell anyone we met. And Felicity? Whatever you do, don't trust... The cafe window exploded. Glass rained down as people screamed. Through the chaos, I saw Knox clutching his chest, red blooming across his white shirt. Not glass. Blood. Sniper! Someone yelled. I dove under the table, heart pounding. When I looked up again, Knox was gone. So was the USB drive. My phone buzzed one final time. Unknown number. Consider this a warning. Some questions are better left unasked. I ran all the way back to Shiloh's apartment, taking random turns, checking constantly for tails. She opened the door before I could knock. "You need to see this," she said, pulling me inside. "The email from Grace to Roberto? It was sent at 9:47 a.m. Your dad was pronounced dead at 10:15. What did it say? Shiloh's face was grim as she turned her laptop toward me. The message was short. "It's done. Transfer the funds. And Roberto? Remember our deal. No one can ever know." The hospital hallway still haunted my dreams. 2 weeks before Dad died, I'd found him there, pacing outside Grace's office at midnight. "Daddy?" I'd said. "What are you doing here?" He'd jumped, shoving papers into his briefcase. "Felicity, I was just consulting with your sister about some medication." Now, standing in that same hallway, I remembered how his hands had trembled, how he'd steered me away from Grace's door, how he'd whispered, "Don't trust," before a nurse interrupted us. "Can I help you?" A young receptionist smiled up at me. I flashed the hospital volunteer badge Shiloh had forged. "Records department." Dr. Grace asked me to pull some files. 5 minutes later, I was scrolling through Dad's medical records. Everything looked normal until I noticed the timestamps. Grace had accessed his chart at 9:30 a.m. on the day he died. The DNR order was logged at 9:45 a.m. My phone vibrated. Shiloh. Security cameras show Grace entering his room at 9:40. She was alone with him for 7 minutes. I pulled up the DNR form. Dad's signature looked wrong. After 32 years of forging his signature on school permission slips, I knew every curve and loop. The final digit in the date was slightly darker, as if written with more pressure. "Excuse me," a voice said behind me. I slammed the laptop shut. A nurse stood there, frowning. "This area is restricted." I grabbed my bag. "Sorry, just finishing up." "Wait." She squinted. "Aren't you Dr. Grace's sister?" I ran. Back at Shiloh's apartment, we compared the DNR signature to Dad's other documents. "Look at the stroke pattern," Shiloh said, enlarging the image. "The pen lifted here. Your dad's signatures were always fluid, one continuous motion." "She forged it," I whispered. "But why? Dad wasn't even critical that morning." "About that." Shiloh pulled up another window. "I found something in the deleted archives. Grace accessed the pharmacy database at 9:15 a.m. Ordered something called Provolox." "What's that?" "A blood pressure medication, but in high doses." She paused. "It can trigger cardiac arrest." My phone rang. Christian. "Where have you been?" he demanded. "Mother's worried sick." "I'm fine. Grace says you've been harassing hospital staff." "Tell Grace to worry about herself." "Fell." His voice softened. "I know you're hurting. But these conspiracy theories, they're not healthy." "Did you know Dad tried to change his will?" Silence. "Christian?" "Don't call me again," he said, and hung up. I turned to Shiloh. "We need more proof." "Already on it," she typed rapidly. "Hospital security footage backs up every night at midnight. If Grace did something in that room..." The video was grainy but clear enough. Grace entering Dad's room. 7 minutes later, alarms blaring. Grace calmly walking out. "Wait," I said. "Go back." In the frame before the alarms, something fell from Grace's pocket. A small vial. "Can you enhance that?" Shiloh zoomed in. The label was blurry, but one word was clear. Provolox. My hand shook as I dialed Knox's office. His secretary answered. "I'm sorry," she said, crying. "Haven't you heard? Mr. Knox? There was an accident. His car. The brakes." I hung up. "Shiloh," I said quietly, "I need you to hack Grace's personal email." "Already done." She hesitated. "But there's something else you should see first." She pulled up a series of emails between Grace and Roberto, dated 6 months ago. "Project Cerebra is nearly ready," Grace had written. Once Dad signs off on the final tests, we'll have everything we need. Roberto's response. Remember our agreement. Once you're CEO, Prisma gets exclusive rights. Your father's ethical guidelines die with him. The clinical trials, I realized. Aston was right. They were going to weaponize my AI. There's more, Shiloh said. Look at this message from 3 weeks ago. Grace to Roberto. Dad knows. He's changing the will. Everything goes to Felicity. We need to move up the timeline. Roberto. Handle it. You know what's at stake. My phone buzzed. Grace. Family dinner tonight. Non-negotiable. Mother insists. I showed Shiloh the text. What do I do? She pulled up the hospital security footage again, freezing on Grace's face as she left Dad's room. You go. You smile. You pretend you know nothing. She turned to me. And then, we destroy her. I stared at Grace's image, at her perfectly composed expression, while our father died behind that door. Yes, I said. We do. Low-tech's future has never been brighter, Grace announced to the sea of reporters. Under my leadership, we're ushering in a new era of technological innovation and ethical responsibility. I watched from the back of the press conference wearing thick-rimmed glasses and a press badge that identified me as Sarah Miller, Tech Weekly. Shiloh's disguise work was flawless. Dr. Grace, a reporter called out, what about the rumors of your sister's opposition to your appointment? Grace's smile never wavered. My sister is taking time to focus on her mental health. Our family fully supports her recovery. My fingers tightened around my recorder. And Project Cerebra? Another reporter asked. When can we expect the launch? Soon, Grace promised. We're ensuring every aspect meets our rigorous ethical standards. I almost laughed out loud. After the conference, I slipped into the shareholders' reception. Mother held court near the champagne fountain, practically glowing as she spoke to potential investors. Grace has transformed low-tech, she gushed. The board's confidence in her is absolute, such a natural leader, just like her father. And your other daughter? Someone asked. Mother's face fell perfectly on cue. We pray for her recovery. I ducked behind a pillar as Grace swept past, Christian trailing in her wake. They disappeared into a side office. Pressing my earpiece, I whispered, Shiloh, you getting this? Audio's crystal clear, she confirmed. Recording now. Through the bug we'd planted earlier, Grace's voice came through sharp and cold. You're getting sloppy, Christian. I don't know what you... The missing funds. Did you think I wouldn't notice? That money was mine. Dad promised a lot of things, Grace cut in. But he's not here anymore, is he? And unless you want the board to learn about your little embezzlement hobby, you'll keep your mouth shut about Felicity's accusations. You can't blackmail me forever. Want to bet? A pause. Oh, and Christian? If you ever try to contact Knox's widow again, I'll make sure you join him. My hands shook as I texted Shiloh. Tell me you got that. Every word. But Fel, there's someone here you need to meet. Coming to you now. Minutes later, Shiloh appeared with a man I recognized instantly. Aston. Not here, he said, looking nervously around. Meet me at the Riverside Park in an hour. Bring your recorder. I found him sitting on a bench, looking older than I remembered. I should have come forward sooner, he said as I sat down. After what happened to Knox. Tell me everything. Grace and we were involved. She used me to access confidential files, said it was for due diligence. I believed her until I found the Prisma contracts. What contracts? Project Cerebra wasn't meant for medical AI. Grace and Roberto planned to retrofit it for military applications. When your father discovered the truth, she killed him, I finished. She made it look perfect. A grieving daughter, a respected surgeon, a natural death. He pulled out a phone. But she got careless once. After a few drinks, she recorded this. The video showed Grace in a hotel room, clearly intoxicated. Poor Daddy, she slurred. Should have signed the papers when he had the chance. Now little sister gets nothing, and Prisma gets everything. Why are you showing me this now? Because Grace is hosting a gala next week to announce Project Cerebra's launch. Every major tech executive and journalist will be there. He met my eyes. It's your chance to expose everything. My phone buzzed, a text from Christian. We need to talk, alone, about Grace. He's terrified of her, Aston said, reading over my shoulder. Use that. I stood up. The gala, can you get me in? Better, I can get you access to the broadcast system. He handed me a security badge. Don't waste this chance, Felicity. It might be your last. Back at Shiloh's apartment, we began planning. The gala's broadcast will be live-streamed to every major tech outlet, Shiloh said, pulling up blueprints. If we can hijack the feed? My phone lit up again, this time from Grace. Missing you at family dinner, sister dear. But don't worry, I'm taking good care of everything. I showed Shiloh the message. 1 week, I said. 1 week until the gala. 1 week to end her, Shiloh agreed. No. I stared at Grace's message, remembering Dad's face in that hospital hallway. 1 week to make her wish we had. I never meant to fall in love with her, Aston said, his hands trembling around his coffee cup. Grace has this way of making you feel special, chosen. We sat in a quiet corner of a 24-hour diner, the kind where nobody looks too closely at anyone else. When did you realize what she was doing? I asked. The night your father confronted her about Project Cerebra. I was hiding in her office when he burst in. Aston's voice cracked. He said he'd found proof she was selling military applications to Prisma. She didn't even deny it. What proof? He pulled out a thumb drive. Transaction records. Offshore accounts. Everything's here. His eyes darted to the window. She doesn't know I kept copies. My phone buzzed. Christian. Meeting you was a mistake. Grace knows. She has photos of us talking. Show me the transactions, I said to Aston. He connected the drive to his laptop. Look at these transfers. Every time Grace met with Roberto, a deposit hit this account in the Caymans. Can we trace it? Already did. The account belongs to a shell company, registered to your mother. I nearly dropped my coffee. What? Meredith's been helping launder the money. She's as deep in this as Grace. My phone lit up again. Christian. Meet me at Dad's grave. Please, I need to make this right. 20 minutes later, I found Christian kneeling by Dad's headstone. She's going to destroy me, he whispered. Then help me destroy her first. He pulled out his phone, showing me photos of documents. Grace made me move money around. Said it was for tax purposes. But look at the dates. Each transfer aligned perfectly with Prisma's deposits. There's more, Christian said. The night before Dad died, I overheard Grace on the phone with Roberto. She said, the formula's ready. Once he's gone, we move to phase 2. What formula? I don't know, but after Dad died, she cleared out his private lab. Everything went to Prisma's research facility. My phone rang. Shiloh. Get back here now, she said. The surveillance footage from Dad's lab? I found something. The video showed Grace entering the lab at midnight, removing vials from a locked cabinet. The label was clear. Provolox. She stole it weeks before, Shiloh said. She was planning this. Send everything to my phone, I told her. I need to show Christian. But when I turned around, Christian was gone. In his place was a note. I'm sorry. She has everything. My family, my future. I can't fight her. My phone buzzed with a text from Grace. Sweet brother finally chose a side. Smart boy. Want to know what happens to people who don't? Attached was a photo of Knox's wrecked car. I called Aston. We need to move faster. Already on it. The Gala's security plans just leaked to my inbox. Grace is getting sloppy. Or she's setting a trap. Either way, we have to try. The guest list includes every major tech journalist in the country. If we can prove what she did... We need more than proof, I said. We need a confession. I might have an idea, Shiloh chimed in through the conference call. But it's risky. Tell me. Grace thinks she has Christian under control, but what if he was wearing a wire? He'll never agree. He might, Aston said. I just found something interesting in the company financials. Grace hasn't just been blackmailing Christian, she's been stealing from him. His trust fund, his shares, everything. I dialed Christian's number, straight to voicemail. He's at Grace's house, Shiloh said, tracking his phone. And, oh shit. What? Roberto just arrived there too. Their phones are both off, but I'm picking up audio through Grace's smart home system. Through the speaker, we heard Grace's voice. Everything's ready. After the gala, Prisma announces their military contract. Low-tech stock plummets, you buy controlling interest, and Project Cerebra goes fully operational. And the formula? Roberto asked. Safe and tested, just like we tested it on dear old Dad. I heard Christian gasp. Oh, don't act surprised, little brother, Grace sneered. Did you really think his death was natural? That drug trial was just a dress rehearsal. Now we know exactly how to make it look like heart failure. You're insane, Christian whispered. No, I'm successful. And you're going to help me showcase Project Cerebra at the gala, or you'll be the next tragic accident in our family. The audio cut out. Tell me you recorded that, I said to Shiloh. Every word. My phone lit up with a final text from Christian. I'm in, let's take her down. The gala transformed Low-Tech's lobby into a glittering showcase of wealth and power. I adjusted my AV crew uniform, watching Grace work the room in a white designer dress. Testing, Shiloh's voice crackled through my earpiece. Cameras are live in 3 minutes. Security positions? I whispered into my collar mic. 2 at each exit, 4 on the main floor. Christians in position by the control room. Grace took the stage, tapping her champagne glass. Welcome, distinguished guests. Tonight, we unveil the future of artificial intelligence. I slipped behind a pillar, checking the broadcast switch in my pocket. One press would override the presentation with our evidence. Project Cerebra, Grace continued, represents a breakthrough in neural network technology, originally conceptualized by my late father. My phone vibrated. Christian. Problem. Grace's head of security is watching the control room. For too long, Grace was saying, AI development has been held back by outdated ethical constraints. Tonight, we break those chains. The crowd murmured appreciatively. In the front row, Roberto smiled like a shark. Shiloh, I whispered, we need a distraction. On it, Christian, kill the lights in Sector 3 when I say go. Grace gestured to the massive screen behind her. Let me demonstrate Cerebra's capabilities. Now! Shiloh yelled. The lights went out in the east wing. Security rushed to investigate. I darted toward the control room, heart pounding. Stop! A guard spotted me. I ran. Felicity, Grace's voice cut through the chaos. I know you're here. I froze. She couldn't see me in the shadows, but her words carried through the sound system. Did you really think I wouldn't be prepared? That I wouldn't have contingencies? My phone lit up. A video message from an unknown number showed Shiloh in her apartment, a red laser dot dancing on her chest. Come out now, Grace said softly, or your little hacker friend dies. Don't do it! Shiloh's voice hissed in my earpiece. I can handle. The audio cut out. 10 seconds, sister dear. I stepped into the light. The crowd gasped. Grace's smile never wavered. Ladies and gentlemen, my troubled sister, so desperate for attention. Tell them the truth, Grace. Security, please escort. Tell them about the Provolox, I shouted. Tell them how you murdered our father. The room went silent. Grace laughed, the sound echoing through the speakers. You see? This is exactly why we had to protect the company from her delusions. Play it, I said into my mic. Nothing happened. Looking for this? Grace held up a familiar thumb drive. Your friend Aston really should choose his passwords more carefully. 2 security guards grabbed my arms. "Wait!" Christian's voice rang out. He emerged from the crowd, phone raised. "I have something everyone needs to hear." Grace's smile flickered. "Christian, remember what we discussed?" He pressed play. Grace's drunken voice filled the room. "Poor Daddy. Should have signed the papers when he had the chance." "That's clearly doctored," Grace snapped, but the crowd was muttering. "The formula's in her private safe," Christian continued, "along with the original Project Cerebra documents, the ones showing she sold military rights to Prisma months ago." Roberto stood up. "This is absurd. I'm leaving." "Sit down, Roberto," a new voice commanded. Aston emerged from the emergency exit, followed by federal agents. "The SEC has some questions about those offshore accounts." Grace's composure cracked. "You can't prove anything." "Actually," Shiloh's voice came through the speakers, very much alive, "we can prove everything. Check your phone, Grace." Grace's phone buzzed. Her face went white as she read the screen. "Live streaming now to every major news outlet," Shiloh announced, "complete with transaction records, medical files, and your private emails. Oh, and Grace, those snipers you hired, they work for us now." "You're lying," Grace whispered. "Mom's singing too," I said quietly. "She took immunity in exchange for testimony." Grace lunged for her purse. A gun appeared in her hand, aimed at my chest. "Nobody move!" she screamed. The crowd scattered. Security drew their weapons. "You ruined everything," Grace snarled. "No," I said. "You did that yourself." She pulled the trigger. The gun clicked empty. "Looking for these?" Christian held up a handful of bullets. "I learned from the best, sister. Always have a contingency plan." The federal agents swarmed in. As they handcuffed Grace, she locked eyes with me one last time. "I was supposed to be perfect," she whispered. "You were supposed to be my sister." My phone buzzed one final time, a message from an encrypted number. "Your father would be proud. Knox's widow." I looked up at the cameras, still live streaming, and smiled. This concludes tonight's presentation. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of police statements, press conferences, and viral headlines. "Tech heir murdered by surgeon daughter," screamed every news channel. Grace's perp walk played on repeat, her white gala dress replaced by an orange jumpsuit. "You need to see this," Shiloh said, barging into my temporary office at Low-Tech. She dropped a stack of files on my desk. "We found her private server." I flipped through the documents. Clinical trial records, dead patients, experimental drugs. "She was testing different formulations," Shiloh explained. "Your father wasn't the first." My phone rang. "Christian." "They're questioning Mom now," he said. "She's telling them everything. The money laundering, the offshore accounts, even Knox's murder." "How much did she know about Dad?" "Enough to make her an accessory. She's facing 20 years unless she cooperates." A knock at my door interrupted us. Aston stood there with 2 federal agents. "Ms. Lowe," one agent said, "we need to discuss Project Cerebra." I gestured for them to sit. "Everything's in those servers. Grace and Roberto plan to retrofit the AI for autonomous weapons. We know. Prisma's board is being indicted as we speak." The agent leaned forward. "But that's not why we're here. We want to talk about the original project, your father's vision." "Medical diagnostics," I said. "Early disease detection through pattern recognition. The government is very interested in legitimate applications, assuming you're willing to work with us." My computer chimed. "Breaking news alert. Prisma Dynamics CEO Roberto Rogers found dead in holding cell, apparent suicide." "Convenient timing," Shiloh muttered. The agents exchanged glances. "We should mention, your sister is requesting a meeting." "No." "She claims to have information about other parties involved." I said no. They left. Aston stayed. "The board's meeting in an hour," he said. "They want to name you CEO." "What about Christian?" "He's stepping down. Says he needs time to process everything." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think this is over? Grace wasn't working alone. Watch your back. I showed it to Shiloh. IP traces to a prison computer, she said after a moment. Grace's cell block. Delete it, I told her. We have work to do. The boardroom felt different now. Emptier. Half the chairs were vacant, their occupants either arrested or under investigation. The vote is unanimous, the chairman announced. Felicity Lowe will assume immediate control as CEO of Low-Tech, effective immediately. I stood to address the room. Project Cerebra will continue as originally intended. Medical AI, ethical applications only. Any questions? A junior board member raised his hand. What about the military contracts? They're worth billions. My father built this company to save lives, not take them. Next question? My phone lit up. Christian, turn on the news now. The boardroom TV flickered to life. Grace's face filled the screen, filmed from her prison cell. I acted alone, she was saying. I manipulated everyone. My brother, my mother, even Roberto. They were all innocent pawns in my scheme. She's trying to take full responsibility, Shiloh realized. Protecting someone. But why? I wondered. The answer came 3 hours later, in the form of a thumb drive delivered to my office. Security footage from a meeting 6 months ago. Grace, Roberto, and 3 high-ranking government officials. Holy shit, Shiloh breathed, watching the video. This goes all the way to— Don't say it, I cut her off. Not here. My phone rang, Grace's prison number. Hello, sister, she said when I answered. Enjoying my office? What do you want? To warn you. You've won the battle, but you have no idea what war you're fighting. She paused. Did you really think 2 tech companies could orchestrate all this alone? You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to save you, like I should have saved Dad when he discovered the truth. Her voice cracked. Some things are bigger than family, Felicity. Some powers you don't want to challenge. Watch me. I hung up and turned to Shiloh and Aston. Get me everything. Every server, every email, every whispered conversation. If Grace was a puppet, I want to know who was pulling the strings. It's dangerous, Aston warned. So is letting them win. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Christian. Found something in Dad's old files. Meet me tonight. Come alone. I looked out my office window at the city below, remembering Dad's words on the flash drive. Start with Project Cerebra's original documentation. We hadn't started there. We'd only scratched the surface. The real war was just beginning. The cemetery was silent except for the crunch of leaves under my feet. Christian stood by Dad's grave, clutching a weathered leather journal. I found his research diary, he said as I approached. The real Project Cerebra wasn't just medical AI. It was a watchdog system. He handed me the journal. Dad's familiar handwriting filled the pages. He designed it to monitor and expose corruption, Christian explained. Government contracts, corporate conspiracies, everything. That's why they wanted it weaponized instead. Why they wanted him gone. My phone buzzed. Shiloh. Grace just attempted suicide in prison. She's alive, but barely. Left a confession naming names. Major government officials, military contractors. It's huge. She was protecting me, Christian said, reading over my shoulder. All along. They threatened to kill me if she didn't cooperate. Why didn't she tell us? Same reason Dad didn't. The people behind this. They don't leave witnesses. A twig snapped behind us. We spun around to find Aston, pale and breathless. They're coming, he gasped. They know about the diary. You need to— A gunshot cracked through the night. Aston fell. Run! Christian shoved me toward the cemetery gates. My phone rang. Shiloh again. The files are uploading now. Every server, every backup. Once it hits the internet, they can't stop it. Another shot. Christian cried out. Go! He yelled, clutching his arm. Finish what Dad started. I ran, the diary clutched to my chest. Footsteps pounded behind me. My phone lit up. Unknown number. You have one chance. Surrender the diary. This ends tonight. I ducked behind a mausoleum, frantically texting Shiloh. How long? 3 minutes until full upload. Every major news outlet will have it. A voice called out, Ms. Lowe, your father was a brilliant man, but he didn't understand the bigger picture. I recognized that voice from the security footage, a high-ranking official I'd seen with Grace. Project Cerebra could protect national security, he continued. Instead, you'll destroy decades of careful work. You mean careful corruption? Call it what you want, but ask yourself, is exposing this worth your life? Your brother's life? My phone vibrated. Shiloh. 90 seconds. Your sister tried to protect you. The voice was closer now. Don't waste her sacrifice. I opened Dad's diary to the last page. A handwritten note. My fierce lion, if you're reading this, you've already won. The truth was always the weapon. Time's up, Ms. Lowe. I stepped out from behind the mausoleum. 3 men in dark suits aimed weapons at my chest. The diary, the leader demanded. I held it up. You want it? Take it. I hurled the diary into the air. As they lunged for it, my phone chimed. Shiloh. Upload complete. It's everywhere. Sirens wailed in the distance. Lots of them. Sir, one man said urgently. We need to go. FBI's incoming. The leader turned to me, fury in his eyes. This isn't over. Actually, I smiled, it is. They vanished into the darkness as police cars flooded the cemetery. Christian emerged from behind a tombstone, arm bandaged by paramedics. Aston was loaded into an ambulance, giving me a weak thumbs up. My phone exploded with notifications. The story was breaking everywhere. Project Cerebra's true purpose, the government conspiracy, Grace's confession, all of it. Ms. Lowe! Reporters swarmed the gates. Can you comment on the allegations? I looked at Christian. He nodded. Project Cerebra was designed to expose corruption, I announced. Tonight, it fulfilled its purpose. My father believed in truth above power, in justice above profit. His legacy isn't a weapon or a stock price. It's the courage to stand against those who abuse their authority. What happens now? Someone shouted. Now, we build something better, something honest. I smiled at the cameras. And to anyone thinking of stopping us, the truth is already out there. You can't delete it, can't contain it, can't control it. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Grace's hospital room. I'm sorry for everything. Make it count. I texted back. We did. It's over. Walking away from the chaos, I passed Dad's grave. Someone had left a fresh rose and a note. Justice thunders through a live stream. Well played, little lion. I smiled, tucking the note into my pocket. The war was over. The truth had won. And somewhere, I knew Dad was proud.